are allowed to think big and dream big. How to generate different systems. Systems that provide stability and are nested within the harmony of nature. I'm excited to explore with you the intriguing bandwidth of information our researchers and friends have surfaced. Let's dive into our next topic to find out how we can actively shape a future worth pursuing and living for.
Welcome everyone to this podcast. My name is Leonie and I'm hosting this episode. Personally, I'm very interested in education systems, and that's why I want to address in this episode the question of how to transform education and learning. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to talk about this important topic with Carina Spieß. She's working at the non-governmental organization Germanwatch as a policy advisor on education for sustainable development. Welcome, Carina. It would be great if you can introduce yourself shortly and tell us what your work at Germanwatch looks like.
Thank you so much for having me. In the Germanwatch itself, we work as an independent development and environmental organization and thus focus on promoting sustainable global development. What that means for us is that we work on creating a society and politics that are socially just and ecologically and economically stable. And for that, we focus on diverse topics such as climate protection and adaptation, energy transformation, world trade and corporate accountability, finances, international politics, and last but definitely not least, education for sustainable development. Within the Department of ESD, Education for Sustainable Development, we try to find educational ways and methods and promote them, of course, that empower, inspire, and support people in their transformative engagement. And personally, I am incredibly thankful to be part of such a transformative work environment and excited for our conversation.
That was already a good overview. So in our everyday lives, we are confronted with multiple challenges such as the climate crisis, social inequalities, or recently a global pandemic. And as human beings, we need the skills and also the mindset to deal with this complexity of our world. I always wonder if what we learn in school or university, for example, are like the right things we need to achieve this. And I'm very interested in your thoughts about this. Therefore, my first question is, from your point of view, which competencies are most important to learn for dealing with complex global challenges we are confronted with?
For a long time, especially within our educational institutions, such as schools and universities, the focus has been on the input and transfer of rational information, because basically the assumption was and still is in many places that enough knowledge will eventually make us become active. However, we now know that the transfer of knowledge is only one, a very crucial and necessary, but only one piece of the puzzle towards sustainable action. In addition, I would say we need 3 more sets of competencies. Firstly, we need emotional competency, because on our way towards a sustainable future and within sustainable action, we will be confronted with feelings of fear and anger, and we need to know how to deal with these emotions and how to accept them and transfer them into empowered emotions like bravery and hope. And another emotional aspect definitely is that we need to build resilience, because if I take transformative action, I will be confronted with hardships and with challenges, and I need to learn how to stake the trouble and move forward. The second set of competencies I would say we need are social competencies, because it is way easier and more effective if I work toward a just transformative transition if I have a group of people around me that support me or that support each other in their goals and actions and their strengths. And the third set of competencies I see is that we need operational and action-based skills. Because if I want to become active, I need to know how. I need to know what are the best ways and methods to get to the sustainable goal that I am working towards. All in all, I would say education then really is a process of lifelong learning on a rational and knowledge-based area, definitely, but also on an emotional, social, and action-based level.
Yeah, that's interesting. You named a lot of things which draw a different picture of a future education with a different focus. I know that Germanwatch works on promoting transformative education. So it would be interesting to know what exactly does this mean for you, and on what especially are you working in Germany?
Basically, I would say transformative education strengthens the competencies that we talked about above. So transformative education, on the one hand, strengthens individual aspects. It broadens my knowledge. It allows me to question what I know and figure out what future I want to create or what future I want to be part of. Education can teach me to be able to decide to change, and it can allow me to be willing to create that change and start. So I think the starting point for transformation is partly on the individual level. But then I think transformative education goes one step further, as it empowers learners to actually implement their visions and take action that goes beyond the individual change. So it allows us to create changes in societal and political structures. Transformative education makes us realize not only can I reduce my negative impact, but I can actually increase my contribution and the positive impact I have on society. And then it helps us to actually do so. So empowering and taking action, I would say, are the basis that make education transformative.
It would be interesting to have an example how an institution could implement transformative education.
I think for that, we need to broaden our understanding of the educational environment itself. Let me take up the example of a university as a learning environment. What we focus on most is transferring knowledge, right? But I could also look at a university from a whole institution approach. So as a university, to authentically empower their learners to become engaged in transformative change, places of learning can and should be places where change already happens, that create a certain momentum and that make me feel and see the future that's possible, that inspire me. So as a university, I should create that environment by, for example, making it my vision as an institution to be sustainable, to implement certain technicalities for that, to transfer that mission outwards and communicate that mission. And I think one other important aspect to create a transformative educational environment is to actually step out of the seminar room and into social and political realities, because we are all actors and citizens within these realities, and that's where change ultimately needs to happen. So that's something to consider. How can I bring my learners to apply that knowledge that I gave them into their surroundings and environment, and how can I push them out of the seminar room and into their active environment?
Thank you for explaining how you understand transformative education. But I think everything becomes clearer when we talk about what this means in practice. So do you have a specific tool which supports the empowerment of learners?
Absolutely, we do. At Germanwatch, we work with the concept of the handprint. So many of us know the concept of the ecological footprint, right? It allows me, in a very quantitative manner, to calculate the negative environmental impact we have as individuals. And while for many, the footprint concept works as some kind of entry point and raises awareness to topics of sustainability, it does have its downsides. For example, the footprint focuses on the negative. I leave a negative impact. So that can be very frustrating and make us feel hopeless, especially since, and that's my second point, the structures we live in, we can barely not have a negative impact. So within this concept, we are passive consumers that can't do very much, and that's not very encouraging. The handprint, as an addition to the footprint concept, focuses on positive actions with lasting impacts. The handprint concept originates from the organization CEE in India, and at Germanwatch we have further developed the approach so that it now focuses on societal and political transformative forms of engagement with a lasting impact. I know that's a lot. So the core idea is we all can become active in such a way that we change social and political structures so that sustainability becomes the new norm for everyone. The sphere within journalists can improve structures to be more sustainable is adaptive and unlimited. I can become active within my family if that's the scope I see for myself right now. I can become active at school, in my work environment, or if I want to go all the way up, I can become active in international politics. And that is encouraging because I can take action that is adequate for the multiple and dire crises that we're facing. All in all, by anchoring sustainable structures to become the social norm, I make sustainable alternatives accessible for my environment, and I can broaden the scope of my impact. For me, it's a very inspiring tool for everyone working as an educator, be it formal or informal. And if that applies to you, I invite you to consider also taking the step with your learners from footprint to handprint action.
Thanks a lot. So I also find it very interesting that this handprint concept is something everyone can use and has more this positive aspect. So in our podcast series, we talk about the possibility how to create different systems which support sustainable development and the social ecological transformation. And to wrap up our conversation, I want to ask you one last question. How does transformative education and the handprint support system change?
I would say system change is inherent in transformative education and the handprint concept, because both works towards empowering learners to change the structures and the system around them. So to kind of think bigger, think I can create sustainable structures, and with that I change structures and I change the system. So there's no transformative education and no handprint action, I would say, that goes without system change.
I think that were great last words for this podcast episode. Thanks for your time and this inspiring talk. I'm full of hope that positive change in the education system and the way how we learn will happen. So with this, I want to say bye to you, Carina, and also goodbye to all of our listeners.